Log date 7882.3, Galactic Standard Time. This is Chief Xenobiologist Varax conducting initial assessment of the newly discovered species on the third planet of Solar System C-137. Varax adjusted the sensitivity on his long-range scanner and sighed, his four eyes blinking asynchronously in annoyance. Being assigned to catalog yet another primitive species was hardly the career highlight he'd hoped for when graduating top of his class at the Galactic Academy. But orders were orders. The dominant species calls themselves humans. Initial scans indicate they are carbon-based, bipedal, and possess an unusually high water content at approximately 60%. Their planetary designation is Earth, which they apparently named after dirt. Not particularly imaginative. He zoomed in on a human settlement, some place called New York City, according to their rudimentary digital networks. The creatures scurried about like insects, seemingly unaware that their planet had been under observation for the past 3 solar cycles. Their technology is primitive by galactic standards. They've barely managed interplanetary travel within their own system. Still using combustion engines, still killing each other over imaginary lines on their planet, still watching what they call reality televisions despite it containing neither reality nor quality entertainment. Varax's assistant Zloop floated into the observation deck, his gelatinous body rippling with excitement. "Chief Varax, have you seen what they ingest for sustenance?" Zloop's voice bubbled with incredulity. "No, what now?" "They consume the reproductive organs of other species, fermented liquids that cause neural impairment, and compounds that would be classified as toxic waste on 17 galactic worlds." Varax waved a tentacle dismissively. "Just another omnivore species. Nothing special. But sir, they do it for pleasure. They call it cuisine. They compete to see who can consume the spiciest pain-inducing plant extracts. Interesting but irrelevant. The Galactic Council wants a threat assessment, not a food blog." Varax returned to his scanner. Humans appear physically weak. No natural armor, dull teeth, blunt nails, pathetic muscle density compared to even juvenile Crocs warriors. He made some additional notes: poor sensory capabilities, limited vision spectrum, terrible olfactory detection, auditory range so narrow they miss 80% of cosmic background radiation songs, completely incapable of sensing magnetic fields, radiation, or psychic emanations. Zloop hovered closer to the view screen. "But sir, have you noticed their durability tests?" "Their what?" "They appear to intentionally engage in activities designed to test their physical limits. Look at this footage." The screen showed humans launching themselves off elevated platforms with nothing but fabric to slow their descent, deliberately sliding down frozen mountains on narrow planks, and willingly entering ring-shaped arenas to strike each other repeatedly in the head. "They call these sports and extreme activities," Zloop explained. "They seem to derive pleasure from risking physical harm." Varax's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones widened, the Virillian expression of confused disgust. "Make a note, Zloop. Species appears to have defective self-preservation instincts. That alone disqualifies them as a potential threat. No species can achieve galactic dominance if they intentionally court death for entertainment." "Yes, Chief. The Council will be relieved. These humans are fragile, primitive, and apparently suicidally reckless. Our recommendation will be minimal monitoring. They'll either advance to a reasonable level of civilization or destroy themselves trying to snowboard off a cliff. Either way, no threat to galactic peace." If only he knew how catastrophically wrong that assessment would prove to be. 3 galactic weeks later, Varax was beginning to question his initial assessment. His observation pod orbited Earth at a safe distance, cloaked from human detection systems which frankly could barely detect large asteroids, let alone advanced alien technology. Log date 7906.8. "I am increasingly concerned about certain human behaviors that defy conventional xenobiological classification." Varax replayed footage collected by their observation drones. On screen, a human firefighter emerged from a burning structure carrying 2 smaller humans, despite suffering thermal damage himself. In another clip, a human female lifted an overturned ground transport vehicle to free a trapped companion, a feat that should have been biomechanically impossible given her muscle mass. "Zloop," Varax called out, his voice modulator vibrating with agitation. "Explain these anomalies." Zloop oozed into the command center, his translucent body tinted an anxious purple. "I've been compiling data, sir. Humans appear to have an unexplained ability to temporarily exceed their physical limitations in certain situations. That's impossible. No species can simply decide to ignore biological constraints. Yet they do it constantly." Zloop bubbled. "They call it adrenaline or sometimes mom strength. Our working theory is some form of localized space-time manipulation. Virax's eye stalks twitched skeptically. That would require technology far beyond their capabilities. Unless it's not technological, unless it's innate. The implication hung in the recycled air of the command center like a bad smell. Preposterous, Virax finally said. Next you'll tell me their bizarre habit of exposing themselves to progressively larger doses of toxins actually makes them stronger. Zloop's gelatinous form rippled uncomfortably. About that, sir, have you reviewed the reports on human medical practices? They deliberately inject weakened pathogens into their systems to develop immunity. They transplant organs from one body to another. Some humans voluntarily allow their bodies to be cut open, modified and sealed again in procedures they call surgery. Barbaric, Virax muttered. Effective, Zloop corrected. And they're recreational chemicals, sir. They regularly consume substances that would kill most sentient species. A beverage they call coffee contains enough stimulants to send a Blovian into cardiac arrest. They intentionally consume fermented grain that damages their neural functions, for fun. Virax waved dismissively. So they're immune to certain toxins. Many species evolve such resistances. It's more than that. Have you observed their entertainment media? They create simulations of scenarios that haven't happened. They call it fiction, often depicting their own extinction or suffering. It's as if they rehearse catastrophe for pleasure. The view screen switched to humans watching a dramatization of a global disaster, eating small carbohydrate clusters while their planet was fictionally destroyed. Most disturbing, Virax agreed. But still not evidence of any significant threat. Zloop hesitated, then activated another recording. A human was submerged in frozen water, another was surviving in a desert without hydration, and a third was continuing normal function despite significant physical injury. Sir, they call their planet Earth, but by galactic classification standards, it would be designated a Class 5 death world. The temperature range alone would be lethal to 60% of Galactic Council species. Their atmospheric oxygen concentration would be toxic to another 20%. Virax felt his primary heart skip a beat. Are you suggesting these aren't fragile creatures who evolved on a gentle world, sir? These are monsters who evolved on a planet trying to kill them in 1,000 different ways, every day, for millions of years. And they won. At that moment, the ship's sensors detected a transmission from Earth, a radio signal beamed directly toward a distant star system. The humans were broadcasting their location to the cosmos. They're not oblivious to the galaxy, Zloop whispered. They're calling out to it. What kind of species evolves on a death world, and then deliberately attracts the attention of unknown entities? Virax's dermis paled to a sickly yellow, one that isn't afraid of meeting something worse than itself. The view screen showed humans launching another primitive rocket, pushing further into their solar system despite radiation levels that would liquefy Virax's internal organs. Update the threat assessment, Virax said quietly, and recommend to the Council that we initiate first contact protocols. First contact. But we usually observe for at least a century before. If we don't establish diplomatic relations now, I fear we may end up establishing them later from a much weaker negotiating position. Virax's eyes all focused on the image of Earth rotating below. A species that treats near-death experiences as entertainment cannot be allowed to discover the galaxy on its own terms. Zloop dutifully recorded the recommendation, unaware that the Council would interpret this warning in precisely the wrong way, as an endorsement of humanity's readiness to join galactic society, rather than a desperate plea to contain them while still possible. The Grand Galactic Council chamber on Proxima Centauri station hummed with the nervous energy of 200 different species representatives. The curved walls displayed real-time translations in thousands of languages, and atmospheric barriers separated delegates who breathed methane from those who required helium-rich environments. High Counselor Drav, an ancient crystalline entity who had overseen galactic diplomacy for 3 centuries, vibrated in the particular frequency that indicated deep concern. Let me understand correctly, Drav chimed, crystal facets refracting light around the chamber. Chief Xenobiologist Virax recommends initiating contact with this human species immediately. Despite their primitive development stage, Ambassador Kroon, a towering arthropoid whose exoskeleton clicked rhythmically, raised an appendage. I've reviewed the data packets. These humans exhibit highly concerning abilities. They can regenerate limbs. That's factually incorrect, interjected a Medusan diplomat, her tentacles writhing. They cannot regenerate major appendages. However, they routinely donate vital organs to each other and somehow survive. Even more alarming, added Representative Orcs, a gaseous being contained in an environmental suit, they intentionally damage their muscle tissues through repetitive strain, which somehow makes these tissues stronger. It defies biological principles. The council chamber erupted in overlapping voices, each more alarmed than the last. They consumed fermented poisons for celebration, their young play by simulating death and violence. They exposed themselves to radiation voluntarily to alter their skin pigmentation. High Councillor Drav pulsed a subsonic tone that instantly silenced the chamber. The recommendation before us is clear, Drav resonated. We must invite humanity into the Galactic Council before they discover independent interstellar travel. Virax's assessment suggests they represent a unique biological perspective that could benefit our collective knowledge. What Drav failed to mention was how thoroughly the Council's bureaucracy had sanitized Virax's actual report. The warning approach with extreme caution had been administratively translated to unique diplomatic opportunity. The phrase potentially catastrophic biological adaptability had become valuable evolutionary perspective. The vote is unanimous, Drav announced after a brief psychic polling. Prepare the first contact delegation. Meanwhile, on Earth in the United Nations headquarters in New York City, Secretary General Miguel Rodriguez stared at the holographic alien that had appeared during his lunch break, interrupting his turkey sandwich. Let me get this straight, Rodriguez said, pinching the bridge of his nose. You're inviting Earth to join some Galactic Council? Indeed, honored human, replied the holographic ambassador, a bipedal feline entity wearing what appeared to be ceremonial armor. We have observed your species and determined you are ready to join the community of advanced civilizations. Rodriguez glanced at his half-eaten sandwich, then back at the alien. And you're making this offer? Why exactly? The alien's whiskers twitched. Your species has demonstrated remarkable qualities. The council believes your perspective would be valuable. Rodriguez had been a diplomat long enough to recognize carefully chosen language. What's the catch? Catch? I don't understand. The downside. The fine print. The part where this turns out badly for humanity. The alien's tail flicked nervously. There is no catch. You would simply need to send representatives to the council station. We would provide transportation. Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. 20 years in international politics had taught him that when something seemed too good to be true, it usually involves someone trying to exploit someone else. But who was he to turn down first contact with an advanced alien civilization? I'll need to consult with world leaders, of course. Of course. The alien agreed smoothly. We will return in one of your Earth weeks for your response. After the hologram disappeared, Rodriguez immediately convened an emergency session of the Security Council, where the world's powers demonstrated unprecedented unity in their response to alien contact. We have to go, declared the Chinese representative. Absolutely, agreed her American counterpart. Think of the technological advancements, added the Russian delegate. And the scientific knowledge, chimed in the French representative. Only the British delegate seemed skeptical. Am I the only one who's seen a science fiction film? This could be a trap. Or it could be our invitation to the stars, countered Rodriguez. Either way, can we afford not to accept? Back on Proxima Centauri station, preparation for the humans' arrival had reached a fever pitch. Increase structural reinforcement in the human quarters, ordered Facility Director Plex, a methodical insectoid. Their data indicates they can exert up to 800 newtons of force when opening simple containers. Atmospheric composition adjusted to reduce oxygen content to non-lethal levels, reported Chief Medical Officer Tulla. And we've removed all substances containing capsaicin, caffeine, and ethanol from the station. Warning labels have been applied to all surfaces that exceed 312 Kelvin, added Safety Coordinator Vrix. And we've installed emergency gravity modulators in case they require their unusual 9.8 MSS gravity field. What none of them realized was that their preparations based on misinterpreted data and exaggerated reports were constructing a welcome that would only reinforce the growing mythology around these strange beings called humans. As the first human delegation prepared to board the alien vessel that had landed on the White House lawn, Secretary General Rodriguez straightened his tie and muttered to himself, "Well, here goes nothing. Let's hope these aliens have a sense of humor." He had no idea how poorly that hope would age. The diplomatic vessel Harmonious Exchange dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a ripple of distorted space-time. On the observation deck, the human delegation pressed against the viewport windows, gasping at their first view of Proxima Centauri station. "Holy shit," whispered Dr. Eleanor Chen, xenolinguist and head of the scientific team. It's beautiful. The station was a massive crystalline structure that seemed to be growing rather than built, with spiraling arms extending from a central hub that glowed with internal light. Ships of various configurations swarmed around it like bees around a hive. Captain Marcus Jackson, the military attaché, frowned. Anyone else notice the station just reconfigured itself when we arrived? Those new structures weren't there a minute ago. Secretary General Rodriguez adjusted his tie nervously. Perhaps they're just extending a welcome mat. If only they knew. The station's rapid reconfiguration represented emergency protocols being implemented as sensors detected the approaching human vessel. Reinforced containment areas, enhanced atmospheric scrubbers, and additional gravitational stabilizers had all deployed automatically. As the landing bay doors closed behind their ship, the humans were surprised to see hundreds of aliens in what appeared to be hazmat suits lining the corridor ahead. Remember, Rodriguez murmured to the delegation, we represent all of humanity. Best behavior, everyone. No pressure, muttered Dr. Layla Patel, the medical officer checking her tablet. The atmospheric readout says it's breathable, but barely. High nitrogen content. The ship's doors hissed open, and the receiving committee visibly flinched backward. High Counselor Drav floated forward, crystal structure vibrating in what the translation matrix identified as formal welcome frequency. Honored humans, Drav's translator conveyed, we welcome you to the Galactic Council. Please proceed directly to the accommodation chambers prepared for your unique physiological requirements. Captain Jackson stepped forward first. Thank you for your hospitality. We're excited to. He paused mid-sentence, sneezing violently. Sorry, bit dusty in here. The assembled aliens recoiled in horror. Containment breach, shrieked a gelatinous official. The human has deployed its biological weapon. Rodriguez stepped forward quickly. No, it's just a sneeze. A natural reflex, nothing to worry about. Drav vibrated skeptically. You expel internal particles at velocities exceeding 100 kilometers per hour, reflexively. Well, when you put it that way, Dr. Chen murmured, it does sound alarming. As they were escorted through the station, the human delegation noticed increasingly strange accommodations. Their quarters featured reinforced walls that could withstand tank shells. The furniture was designed to support creatures 10 times their weight. Warning signs in multiple languages covered every surface that might conceivably cause harm. They think we're made of glass, Captain Jackson observed, tapping a padded wall. Dr. Patel frowned at the environmental controls. Actually, I think it's the opposite. These atmospheric settings are designed to handle extreme variations. They think we might breathe fire or something. Later during the formal welcome reception, things took a turn for the bizarre. The humans were presented with what the aliens considered safe nutrition, flavorless nutrient cubes, with the consistency of tofu. Dr. Chen politely sampled one, then reached into her bag. I brought some snacks if anyone's hungry. She produced a small package of chocolate-covered espresso beans. The nearby aliens observed with horrified fascination as she popped several into her mouth. What is that substance? Asked a hovering octopoid diplomat. Chocolate-covered coffee beans, Chen replied cheerfully. Would you like to try one? The translator must have malfunctioned, because the alien's reaction suggested she'd offered it liquid plutonium. Word spread quickly through the gathered diplomats. The humans consumed concentrated caffeine and the abramine simultaneously, for pleasure. Meanwhile, Secretary General Rodriguez was attempting small talk with High Counselor Drav. Your station is remarkable. How do you maintain artificial gravity? Drav's crystals flickered with what might have been pride. Gravitational field manipulators allow us to maintain comfortable conditions for all species. Some require minimal gravity, while others, Rodriguez accidentally knocked over his drinking vessel, spilling water. He quickly dropped to one knee to clean it. Sorry about that. The entire reception hall fell silent. Rodriguez looked up to find every alien staring at him in shock. What did I do? You function in this gravity. Drav vibrated intensely. This reception area is currently set to twice standard gravity as a courtesy to the Hemorphs from Rigel. Feels a bit light actually, Captain Jackson commented, bouncing slightly on his toes. Earth gravity is stronger. A ripple of alarmed communication spread through the gathering. The humans functioned normally, even complained about the lightness, in what most species considered crushing gravitational force. The final revelation came during a tour of the station's engineering section. Dr. Patel, fascinated by a pulsing energy conduit, reached out absent-mindedly to touch it. The alien guide screeched in alarm. Stop, that conducts plasma at 5,000 degrees. Patel jerked her hand back. Sorry, just curious. The guide stared at her. You approached it willingly, even knowing the temperature. Well, I didn't know until you told me, Patel admitted. And if you had accidentally touched it, Patel shrugged, I'd have gotten a nasty burn. Probably need medical attention, but you would survive contact with plasma. Depends on how much contact, but brief exposure. Sure, humans survive burns all the time. The guide's appendages trembled as it made an urgent communication to station security. By dinner time, the human delegation noticed they had acquired a security detail that seemed less focused on protecting them and more on protecting others from them. Is it just me? Rodriguez whispered to his team over their meal of more bland nutrition cubes. Or are they all terrified of us? Captain Jackson surveyed the room full of aliens maintaining a conspicuous distance. Not just you, sir. I think we may have a situation on our hands. Dr. Chen nodded slowly. They've been misinterpreting everything about us from the beginning. They don't see us as equals. No, Doctor, Patel agreed grimly. They see us as monsters. The emergency session of the Galactic Security Council convened behind triple-sealed doors. Representatives from the 17 most powerful species huddled together, their usual hierarchical seating arrangements abandoned in favor of a tight defensive circle. They must be contained, insisted Ambassador Kroon, mandibles clicking rapidly. Did you see the female human consume both capsaicin extract and ethanol simultaneously? She called it a Bloody Mary's and claimed it helped with something called a hangover. More concerning, burbled Representative Orks through his atmospheric translator, is their response time to threats. The male human Jackson caught a falling data crystal before it hit the ground. Their neural impulses must travel faster than light. High Counselor Drav vibrated impatiently. Let's not exaggerate. While the humans demonstrate alarming physical capabilities, they remain civil and diplomatic. A new voice joined the conversation. Varex had finally been summoned from his research vessel. With respect, Counselor, the xenobiologist said, I tried to warn you. Humans evolved on a Class 5 death world. Everything about them is designed for survival under extreme conditions. What do you recommend? Asked Drav. Before Varex could answer, the station's emergency alert system activated. Holographic projections appeared throughout the chamber showing a massive object approaching the station. Unidentified vessel on collision course, announced the automated system. Impact in 18 minutes. The security monitors showed chaotic scenes throughout the station as representatives from hundreds of worlds reacted with panic. Some species entered hibernation states immediately, others released defensive spores into the atmosphere. The aquatic delegates were frantically trying to secure themselves in water tanks to survive impact. In the diplomatic quarters, the human delegation watched the same emergency broadcast with much calmer reactions. 18 minutes. That's plenty of time, Captain Jackson said, checking the schematics they'd been provided. The station has deflector shields and evasive thrusters. Dr. Chen was interfacing with the station's information system. According to this, most of those systems are offline for the diplomatic reception. They diverted power to accommodate all the different species' environmental needs. So they can't move and they can't deflect it, Rodriguez summarized. Options. Dr. Patel looked thoughtful. The object isn't that large. If they had a tractor beam, they could divert it. Those are offline too, Chen reported. Rodriguez made a decision. Captain, take Dr. Patel and find the engineer. See if you can help them get defenses back online. Dr. Chen and I will go to the command center and offer assistance. In the command center, pandemonium reigned. Aliens of various shapes and sizes were either frozen in terror or frantically pressing controls that did nothing. Rodriguez strode confidently through the chaos, directly approaching High Counselor Drav. We understand there's an emergency. We want to help. Drav's crystals pulsed erratically. The collision alert has triggered evolutionary panic responses in most species. The command staff is currently indisposed. Rodriguez looked around at the various aliens, either catatonic with fear or huddled in defensive postures. Only Varex seemed functional, frantically working at a control panel. What's the situation exactly? Rodriguez asked. Varex explained without looking up. A rogue asteroid, approximately 1 kilometer in diameter. Our deflector array is powered down for the reception. Evacuation is impossible in the time remaining. What about your emergency protocols? They assume functional command staff, Varex said pointedly, gesturing to the incapacitated aliens around them. Rodriguez activated his comm unit. Jackson's status report. Engineering is a mess, sir, came the reply. Their chief engineer has encased himself in some kind of protective resin. Dr. Patel is reviewing their systems now. I think I can reroute emergency power, Patel's voice cut in. But I need authorization from command. Rodriguez looked at Varex. Can you authorize this? I'm a xenobiologist, not a commander, Varex replied. But yes, the emergency protocols would allow it under these circumstances. Authorization codes were exchanged, and moments later, warning klaxons sounded throughout the station. What's happening? Demanded Rodriguez. The station's gravitational field is destabilizing, Chen reported, reading from a nearby terminal. All non-essential systems shutting down. In engineering, Dr. Patel worked feverishly alongside Captain Jackson, who was physically holding together a connection that 3 alien engineers had failed to secure. Just a little longer, Patel muttered. The power transfer is almost complete. No pressure, Jackson grunted, ignoring the electrical burns forming on his hands. Only a few million lives at stake. In a desperate gambit, Patel had realized they could use the station's gravity manipulation system, designed to accommodate hundreds of different species, as a makeshift tractor beam. By creating a focused gravitational corridor, they might be able to alter the asteroid's trajectory just enough. Now, she shouted. Jackson released the connection and staggered back. Throughout the station, gravity went haywire. Some sections experienced weightlessness, while others felt crushing force. The massive crystalline structure of the station groaned and flexed in ways its designers never intended. In the command center, Rodriguez and Chen braced themselves against control panels as the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. It's working, Chen exclaimed, watching the trajectory projections. The asteroid is being diverted, but the celebration was premature. A secondary alert sounded. The gravitational distortion is creating structural strain beyond safety parameters, Varax reported grimly. We're losing integrity in sections 3 through 17. Rodriguez activated his comm again. Patel, we need to stabilize the station. Working on it, came the terse reply. But if we drop the gravitational field now, the asteroid will still clip the eastern arm of the station. How many people in that section? Approximately 2,000 representatives from 63 worlds. Rodriguez made a command decision. Evacuate that section immediately. Keep the gravitational field active until the asteroid passes. For tense minutes, the humans coordinated an impromptu evacuation, physically carrying species that had entered defensive hibernation states, guiding others through unfamiliar corridors, all while enduring gravitational shifts that would have incapacitated most species. When the asteroid finally passed, missing the station by less than 100 meters, the exhausted humans gathered back in the command center. Captain Jackson's hands were bandaged. Dr. Patel was nursing a twisted ankle, and both Rodriguez and Chen were bruised from the gravitational fluctuations. Around them, alien representatives were emerging from their various protective states to find themselves alive, and to find the humans standing calmly in their midst, injured but functional, having just saved the entire station. High Counselor Drav approached Rodriguez, crystal structure vibrating in what the translation matrix identified as profound existential terror. You willingly endured physical damage to save us. Rodriguez shrugged, wincing slightly at his bruised shoulder. It's what anyone would have done. No, Varax interjected quietly. It isn't. The gathered aliens stared at the humans with new understanding. These weren't just physically resilient beings. They were creatures who could face extinction-level threats without triggering evolutionary panic responses, who could function through pain, who could improvise solutions using systems they barely understood. In that moment, the humans had no idea that they had just demonstrated exactly why Death World species were usually quarantined, not invited to join galactic society. They had no idea that they had just completely restructured the galaxy's power dynamics. They were just happy everyone was safe. 3 galactic standard months after the asteroid incident, the Proxima Centauri station had undergone significant changes. Signs in multiple languages now adorned most corridors with warnings like human-designated area. Proceed with caution and warning, human-safe atmospheric composition within. Secretary General Rodriguez stood before the full Galactic Council, concluding his presentation on Earth's proposal for a joint defense system. And that's why we believe a coordinated asteroid detection network would benefit all member worlds, he finished, smiling confidently at the assembled representatives. The chamber remained silent for several seconds, not out of disagreement but from the sheer instinctive caution that now accompanied any human suggestion. Finally, High Counselor Drav vibrated in affirmation. The proposal is logical. The Council approves allocation of resources for this Project Sentinel as Earth has designated it. Drav paused, crystals pulsing. Does any representative wish to voice opposition? Not a single appendage, tentacle or sensory organ moved in dissent. Very well, Drav continued. Earth's first proposal to the Galactic Council passes unanimously. As Rodriguez left the chamber, he found Dr. Chen waiting for him, looking troubled. Another unanimous vote, she noted. That's the 7th consecutive human proposal they've approved without debate. Rodriguez loosened his tie. I'm not complaining. Earth is getting access to technology centuries beyond our development stage. But don't you think it's strange? 3 months ago they treated us like fascinating curiosities. Now they approve anything we suggest without question. Maybe they've just come to respect our judgment. Chen frowned. That's not respect, Miguel. That's fear. In the station's most secure meeting chamber, a clandestine gathering of the highest-ranking representatives was underway. No humans were present, and no recording devices were permitted. The expansion of human influence is proceeding at an alarming rate, stated Ambassador Kroon. They now have access to technology that could allow them to reach any world in the galaxy. We should never have invited them to join the council, moaned a luminescent fungoid being. Do you know what they call our worlds? Garden planets. As if our home worlds are nothing but cultivated safe spaces. Perhaps we overreacted, suggested a representative from a gaseous species. Yes, they're resilient, but they haven't shown any aggression. Varax, who had been elevated to Chief Xenosecurity Officer following his prescient warning about humans, activated a holographic display. This is surveillance footage from the human diplomatic vessel, he explained. Watch what happens when they think they're alone. The footage showed Captain Jackson and a human security team in their private quarters, engaging in what appeared to be a recreational activity. They were taking turns striking each other's abdomens with closed fists, laughing after each impact. They call this the punch game, Varax explained. They deliberately inflict pain on each other, for amusement. The chamber filled with horrified murmurs. There's more, Varax continued, changing the display. This is Dr. Patel consuming what they call extra spicy curry. The capsaicin levels would cause respiratory failure in 82% of council species. The footage showed Patel calmly eating the food, occasionally pausing to wipe tears from her eyes but otherwise showing enjoyment. They willingly consume pain, whispered a jellyfish-like delegate, and they derive pleasure from it. Most concerning, Varax concluded, is their reaction to our fear. He displayed footage of Rodriguez and Chen in private conversation. I don't understand why everyone's so jumpy around us, Rodriguez was saying. We're just trying to help. Maybe they're not used to our way of doing things. Chen replied. We should be patient with them. Varax deactivated the display. They perceive our natural survival instincts as weakness. They pity us. The chamber fell silent as each representative contemplated the implications. What do you suggest? Drav finally asked. We give them everything they ask for, Varax said simply. We integrate them fully into galactic society. We make them our protectors. You can't be serious, protested the fungoid representative. Consider the alternative, Varax countered. If we try to contain them now, after they've seen our technology, they'll eventually break free, and then they'll remember that we tried to imprison them. No one needed reminding of what humans did to perceived threats. Better they think of us as friends who need protection. Varax concluded. Better to be a pet than prey. Back in the human quarters, Rodriguez was hosting a small celebration for the Earth delegation. They were drinking actual alcohol and eating actual spicy food, both of which had required special import permits and warning labels that made nuclear hazard signs look understated. To Project Sentinel, Rodriguez toasted, raising his glass. The first step toward making the galaxy safer for everyone. The humans clinked glasses cheerfully, unaware that beyond their walls, station alerts were announcing caution, human celebration in progress. Non-resistant species advised to maintain distance from Section 42. Dr. Chen sipped her wine thoughtfully. Have you noticed how quickly they approve all our proposals? It's like they're not even evaluating them. Captain Jackson shrugged. They're probably just impressed with how we handled the asteroid crisis. We showed them we know what we're doing. Maybe, Chen said unconvinced. But I've been studying their cultural databases. Do you know what they call Earth in their classification system? A death world. That's a bit dramatic, Dr. Patel laughed. Not to them, Chen insisted. Most council species evolved on worlds with stable climates, minimal tectonic activity, and narrow temperature ranges. They think we're, well, monsters. That's ridiculous, Rodriguez scoffed. We've been nothing but helpful, that's the point, Chen said quietly. We solved in minutes a crisis their entire command structure collapsed under. We endured conditions they consider lethal. Captain Jackson held a live power coupling with his bare hands. Jackson flexed his healed fingers. It was just a second-degree burn, no big deal. To them it's terrifying, Chen persisted. I think they're giving us whatever we want because they're afraid to say no. Rodriguez considered this. So what are you suggesting? That we shouldn't try to help? I'm suggesting we recognize the power dynamic we've accidentally created, Chen replied. We thought we were joining a club of equals, but they see us as apex predators. Outside the window, the majestic spiral arms of the Milky Way stretched across the star-filled void. Somewhere in that vast expanse, hundreds of alien civilizations were coming to terms with a new reality. The galaxy's most durable species had just been handed the keys to interstellar travel. Well, Rodriguez said finally, raising his glass again with a wry smile, I guess humanity has become the galaxy's apex predator, and they didn't even notice we were hunting. The humans laughed, the sound carrying through the station's corridors, causing nearby aliens to quicken their pace nervously. In the security monitoring room, Varax watched the humans celebrate with a mixture of dread and resignation. The translation matrix couldn't quite capture the meaning of the human phrase that kept repeating in their conversation. What could possibly go wrong? Varax had a feeling the galaxy was going to find out.